Cat Key or Bushrat could contain up to 1 million ounces of gold. So there's a huge target to go for. It's a very good value acquisition from an ECR point of view. We're paying entirely in shares, and that also includes the option for Cat Key, which I'll come on to talk about in a moment. So in terms of dilution, it would be a maximum of 10.4%. Blue Mountain is front and centre the most important target for the company this year. We've said we believe we can get it into production, and nothing is more important than achieving that.
ECR Minerals have announced a non-binding agreement to acquire Maximus Minerals Limited, along with the option to acquire the Cat Key project. This diversifies their portfolio into Canada and, of course, other commodities such as zinc and copper. Well, joining us today is Chairman of ECR Minerals, Nick Tulloch. We spoke last week. Nick, it's good to be catching up again. How are things?
Yeah, very good, Mark. Nice to be back so soon, and hope all is well with you too.
Yes, all good. Thank you, Nick. So let's catch up on what this news is all about, really. I mean, first of all, give us the why. Why have you decided to go into this venture, let's say? I know you've got your due diligence to complete first of all, but what's the rationale behind getting involved with this project and of course, moving over to the projects in Ontario, Canada?
Well, I suppose the first thing is that Maximus is the culmination of quite a long project. We've been looking to expand ECR for quite some time, and predominantly expand it through acquisition. You might also say joint ventures or other collaborations, but the main objective was to increase the size of the business, add a bit more diversification, both on geography and also on metals and minerals. We've looked at quite a few different options over the last year or so, and Maximus is where we've settled. Hopefully the announcement gives a pretty good reason as to why. This is 71 square kilometres. It's in Canada. It's 4 properties. There's multiple claim cells. Primary target is gold, so we're staying where we know best. But we also come into other projects as well. I mean, sort of zinc and copper in particular, as you mentioned. It's a very good value acquisition from an ECR point of view. We're paying entirely in shares, and that also includes the option for Cat Key, which I'll come on to talk about in a moment. So in terms of dilution, it would be a maximum of 10.4% if all the shares are issued. And there's a little bit of variation, because there'll be some foreign exchange translation, particularly on the Cat Key option. But it's an entirely share-based acquisition. It's therefore fairly low cost, low cash cost from an ECR point of view. Cat Key comes with some exploration credits as well. So it's ticked a number of boxes, and it's achieved what we've set out to look for, which is that diversification both of geography and also of asset.
Okay, now you say you've seen quite a few different things that have come across the desk over the previous few months or what have you. You've got 3 months due diligence to complete. Just tell us a bit about that process, what's going to be involved, and why, what you hope to discover during that to effectively back up your initial feelings that this is a good route to go down.
Well, I suppose, first of all, we have done the vast majority of the commercial diligence already. We wouldn't have got this far. We wouldn't have entered into exclusivity, and we wouldn't have announced the deal if it wasn't a deal we wanted to do.
Okay.
In all honesty, I think 3 months is probably too long, but there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that one of the people on the other side of the deal is not so well at the moment, so we're just giving them a little bit more time. It's just the right thing to do. And the second is there's a very small constitutional change required for Maximus, just to ensure that we can buy 100% of it. And so again, we're giving ourselves a bit more time. So 3 months is a backstop. It's not a target. I think we'll get through it fairly quickly. But the core diligence, will be on just refining where we are on the commercial terms. We have an option to conclude from New Vision. So Maximus comes with an option to acquire Cat Key. We are going to take possession of that option, and we'll exercise the option as soon as we complete the acquisition. That will also be paid for with ECR shares. This is discussed with New Vision, but there'll still need to be an amendment to the option that will need to be put in place. So those are the primary targets. It shouldn't be too onerous, and so we wouldn't have announced it at this stage if we felt there were any major hurdles in the way.
Okay, and I mean, in terms of where the projects are at, is it grassroots? Is it a bit more advanced than that? What's the sort of stage that they're at the moment?
Well, Cat Key is very advanced. I think the real attraction of doing the transaction with Maximus was Cat Key, where there's been in the past 18,000 meters of drilling that's been completed. And we set out in the announcement some of the grades, some of them which are absolutely terrific. There's a bushrat zone, or it's named the bushrat zone, that runs about 350 meters through the property. That is the primary target at Cat Key. And if I go with what the Maximus management are telling me, and they've extrapolated this from their own interpretation of the drilling results, Cat Key or bushrat could contain up to 1 million ounces of gold. So there's a huge target to go for. It's had a resource report as far back as 2014. There's an option to use the words option, but our target therefore will be to update and republish that resource report. And like other small miners here, where we want to get to is we want to get to resource, we want to get to production. I'll maybe talk about Blue Mountain in a moment, which is still the primary focus of the business. But proving a resource at Cat Key is going to be the main target for what we do with Maximus. And investors should expect that to happen pretty quickly as well.
Okay. So that will be the main goal, effectively, once DD is completed. And this is all funded as well, isn't it? I believe the RNS stated any activity. But you're funded for all your Australian activities. Are you funded also for any work you might do on Cat Key, for example?
Yeah, we're fully funded for everything we want to do in Australia. That was announced back in November, December. We did the last fundraising. Since then, a couple of things have happened. We have agreed a deal to sell Brewing Lane, which is a property we have in Victoria. So that's 225,000 Australian dollars, which was not in the original budget. We've also, particularly around Blue Mountain, found a few solutions to reduce the cost of bringing that into production. So there's a little bit of saving there. So I'm not going to go so far as to say we don't need to raise any money for Canada. I think that would be a rather flippant comment given the huge opportunity there is in Canada. But in terms of getting that first drilling program done, in terms of sort of beginning to head towards that resource report, investors should not expect any major dent in our budget at all.
Okay. And just before we move on from this and talk a little bit about Blue Mountain, I'm always interested to find out sort of why wasn't this project developed before? How have you been able to sort of acquire it? Have you got any history of this project?
Of Cat Key?
The Canadian ones.
I suppose it comes down to funding. It comes down to time and the ability of management teams to really push things forward. You say it hasn't been developed. I mean, they did get as far as having a resource report 10 years ago, 11 years ago. They've done a fair amount of drilling, and it's ready now for the next stage. I think we use the expression drill ready in the announcement. So, like many projects, they go through phases, and you can see the same in our Australian projects. And where we're sort of picking up Cat Key, we're almost on that crest of a wave where there's a huge amount of homework done by our predecessors, which we can then use to refine our own drilling program. Again, this is set out in the announcement, broadly to go a little bit deeper. It's only explored down to 125 meters at the moment. We think probably going down to 200 meters makes sense. So there's a bit more to do, but what we've got is some terrific data sets based on several years worth of drilling and several years worth of exploration in the area.
Okay. Now, I have seen a few comments. Of course, we spoke about the tax losses last week, which I think some investors were disappointed. I know that's still ongoing. You've got different cards that you're hoping to play at some point. But I've seen comments that, these guys are diversifying, that the projects in Australia are worth nothing. Why not just focus on Blue Mountain, the flagship, effectively, that early to cash flow? Also, are you perhaps risk overextending here? You're now in two continents. So just a bit of rationale, I think, or a bit of words you can say about how you're going to manage and balance everything, but also focusing on that low-hanging fruit, which is Blue Mountain.
Well, Mark, you're absolutely right. Blue Mountain is front and centre the most important target for the company this year. We said we believe we can get it into production, and nothing is more important than achieving that. And we spoke about the tax losses on Friday. I know there has been some disappointment. And I fully understand that. I mean, there's been a plan to sell the tax losses for $4.5 million. Our counterparty was unable to perform. We're taking the opportunity to rethink. But if you compare the two together, the sale to Opto would have been $4.5 million. Blue Mountain, based on some fairly conservative modelling from us, could achieve a multiple of that in just a few years. So quite apart from, do we use the tax losses against Blue Mountain or not? I mean, the first message is Blue Mountain is much, much more important than the tax losses, and so focusing our efforts and our energy on getting that done, has to be sort of front and center compared to where we are on any future sale of MGA. That is not to say we're not going to carry on with an MGA process, but Blue Mountain is the priority. On your other point, the team who are working on Blue Mountain are understandably largely based in Australia. It is not going to be a distraction for them that we're going into Canada and making the acquisition of Maximus. You might say it will split my time in half, but in terms of geography, I'm sitting here in Scotland. Based on looking at opportunities in Canada, looking at opportunities in Australia, it's not going to make a huge amount of impact on what I can achieve in terms of advancing Blue Mountain. So there will be no slow up, no head turning, no diversification in terms of what we can achieve on Blue Mountain. That remains the absolute priority. And I spoke a few minutes ago about proving up a resource in Canada. Huge tick in the box, we can do that, but nothing compared to the tick in the box we'll get if we bring Blue Mountain into production. So I want investors to be very clear. This is where it's at for us. Blue Mountain is absolutely the priority for this year.
Okay. And that would time effectively, I suppose, with your 3-month DD. I know you said it might not take that long, but I seem to have in my mind that it's about 3 months that you could get small-scale production going at Blue Mountain. So this could sort of time fairly well. You could almost be in that small-scale production at the same time making that final call on Canada.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there will be an overlap in timing. I mean, I'd like to say we'll get Maximus done a little bit faster, but let's see how we go. But even since you and I last spoke, we've made progress on commissioning the GPR, so the ground penetration radar survey that we're looking to get done in Blue Mountain. Bear in mind, these are quite remote places. You can't just sort of, it's not like ordering an Uber. Getting a contractor into some of these locations takes a bit of time. But even over the weekend, we've made quite big advances on that. I'm hoping to get that done fairly quickly. Same applies to the drone survey as well. Same applies to commissioning a larger and bespoke wash plant. So there's activity on all of the main streams that you would expect, or investors would expect to see on Blue Mountain. None of that will slow up. If it came to a choice of, do I spend more time on Blue Mountain or more time on Maximus? No offense whatsoever to Maximus, but Blue Mountain is the target. But I think Maximus is a very, very promising opportunity for us, as I say, to diversify and get to a proven resource before too long.
Okay, good. So we can expect a flurry of news, particularly relating to Blue Mountain over the next couple of months, can we, Nick? Yeah,
you absolutely can. I mean, you know our style at ECR. We tend to keep investors fairly well informed. I don't want to sort of bore people by sort of reporting every footprint, but we set out in the announcement on Friday last week some of the key sort of first steps that need to be taken to bring Blue Mountain into production. And we did that deliberately just to show investors that we've thought through the plan. It's a coherent plan that has a fair amount of planning at the outset. What we don't want to do is send an excavator in to be digging trenches all over the property. I mean, this is a substantial tenement. Better to get it targeted and actually know exactly where we can go to get the biggest bang for our buck. So that's what we'll do over the next few weeks. And I'm pleased to say we've made progress even in the 2 or 3 days since our last conversation.
Okay, good. Well, Nick Tulloch, Chairman of ECR, thank you very much for your time.
Many thanks, Mark.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.